Hello, folks. We are going to be starting in just about 1 minute after the top of the hour. So if you want to refill coffees or whatever, we'll be starting in just a moment. Give it a little bit more for some more people to join us. Okay, folks, I think we'll get started. My name is Jim Adams. I'm the Vice President of Worldwide Channels here at Adlumin. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. Good afternoon or good morning, depending upon where you are in the country. And again, thanks for joining us for this important and very timely session and topic. Before we begin, I just want to handle a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, everybody's joined on mute. So if you want to catch our attention, please use the hand raise icon, or just put into the chat or the Q&A window if you want to reach us, and we can unmute you or respond through one of those means. Also, this session is being recorded, so we're going to be providing a playback of this session for you after. So if you want to listen to it again or distribute it to others in your organization who should hear it, that would be great. We'd really appreciate that. And again, just on Q&A, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So if you wanted to start thinking of questions, again, put them in the chat window or the Q&A window, and we'll be sure we address them as we go along, and definitely at the end. So with that, let me just give you an overview of what our agenda is for today. Our guest speaker today, our special guest speaker, is Rob Johnston. Rob is the founder and CEO of Adlumin, and he's got a really interesting background. But Rob is going to speak to us today about the SolarWinds breach. And in particular, he's going to help us understand better what actually happened in the SolarWinds breach. It's gotten a lot of attention, a lot of media play, a lot of press and publications, but I think it's really important to get a perspective as to actually what happened. What were some of the failures or the missteps that actually caused that breach to go undetected for a certain amount of time? What were the implications of it? And then Rob's going to talk about maybe some strategies and tools that you can employ based upon your learnings so that you can create a more secure environment. We're going to talk a little bit about Adlumin as a company and how we're differentiated in the marketplace, and how Adlumin could have been employed potentially to help in what happened with the SolarWinds breach. We'll kind of give a little bit of wrap up on some of the next steps and how you can learn more about Adlumin. We'll have a Q&A session, and then everybody at the end, don't forget you'll each get a $5 Starbucks gift card for joining us today. So with that, I'm going to introduce a little bit about our partnership with what we're doing with credit unions. You know, Adlumin has actually been purpose-built to work with and solve problems for our credit union customers. We got a lot of feedback from credit union customers that frankly helped us to deliver the product and define what it is that you see in the platform today. And that's really, again, based upon a lot of the things that we've heard from our customers that says in the credit union space, this is really important. From a Kuna perspective, we're an associate business member. We contribute an awful lot to the CU Insights, newsletters, and tech talks. So we're a very active participant in the credit union space. And hopefully, as we go through our discussion today, you can start to hear a little bit about what we do and how we might be important for your business. So with that, I'm going to introduce Robert Johnston, who is our CEO and founder of Adlumin. But frankly, Rob has got such an interesting background. Rob has been in the military, part of the DoD. He was at NSA. He's done a number of really high-profile breaches that have made the news and been interviewed on MSNBC. Rob, rather than me trying to introduce you, Could you tell us a little bit about your really interesting background and some of the things that you've done in your career that got you to this point? You're on mute, Rob.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, no problem.
My career is pretty, I've been very fortunate, and I think very lucky in my computer security and incident response career. I grew up in the military, so I was in the Marine Corps. Most of my time in the Marine Corps was spent doing cybersecurity. I got to do some exciting things there, like I ran the Marine Corps Red Team, so I was director of the Marine Corps Red Team, running penetration testing operations, across the Marine Corps' classified and unclassified networks. I went to the National Security Agency. I spent some time at the National Security Agency doing mostly incident response, specifically against Russian-based threat organizations, which, was directly relevant, of course, to what's happening today and what happened, a little earlier on in my career. I left military service. I went into the private sector. I worked for a firm called CrowdStrike. I got to do some exciting, lots of breaches there, lots of incident response there. Specifically, the most notable one is, of course, the Democratic National Committee and the U.S. national elections in 2016. And then, my time in the Marine Corps, I also spent some time investigating, the same Russian hack of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I changed jobs, and I decided to start this company, in early 2017, and really taking advantage of serverless analytics and behavior analytics in the security space and in the application security space. So that's where I am today.
So really interesting background at the NSA and the military, some really high profile breaches, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but so why did you leave that career, and what was it that inspired you to start Adlumin? What is it that you hope to accomplish?
In 2017, and really still today, serverless computing was kind of in its infancy, if you will, and it's still not being leveraged much today. But I wanted to, I spent time at CrowdStrike, which was applying serverless analytics, really the first one to do serverless analytics to anti-malware, right, to antivirus, cloud native antivirus. And so I wanted to start a completely cloud native, security analytics or SIEM product that really kind of manifests itself to be advantageous in two areas for customers. The first is when you use serverless computing, you're unbounding yourself from any real costs associated with data velocity and processing, right? So there's no events per second limitations. And then when you integrate that in with something like a data lake solution, there's of course no cost for additional storage, or additional storage becomes commoditized, a lot like data processing and serverless. So combining those two kind of cloud native technologies really has tremendous advantages for customers. And I saw a lot of issues around the current products that were there. How many events per second are you going to send me, or a data quantity? How much data load are you going to send me? Really puts customers in a bit of a pickle. And it really manifests itself, and they were picking and choosing which devices they wanted to bring in. So they were having to make sacrifices. Well, to fit into my budget, I can only bring in, these 50 devices, and that's it. And so, using this kind of bleeding edge technology, serverless computing, and integrating that in with data lake technology, what you would commonly call today completely cloud native, has become the kind of umbrella term to associate with that. We were able to develop a really, really interesting offering that you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Data quantity and data velocity don't matter. And so we've been very successful there in doing that.
So Rob, we're definitely going to talk about Adlumin. We're going to definitely talk about some of the things he just mentioned, and why that's important, frankly, to our credit union customers, and what it means to them and their security posture. But before we do that, let's focus now on what's happened in the news and the SolarWinds breach. And again, it's got a lot of attention, it's got a lot of press. Can you help us understand, give us the background? What actually did happen there? What is the SolarWinds breach really all about?
So APT 29 is the actor, responsible for the SolarWinds breach. It is an actor I'm, intimately familiar with. It's the one that in 2014 breached the Department of State and the Executive Office of the President. It later on in 2015 is responsible for hacking into the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. Later on in 2016, it's responsible for hacking into the Democratic National Committee, and then now also responsible for breaking into SolarWinds and then using that software distribution channel in order to distribute malware to SolarWinds customers, subsidiary customers across the world. APT 29 is a cryptonym for what is now known as the Russian SVR. For those that aren't familiar with the Russian intelligence services, it is the principal foreign intelligence agency of the CIA, of the Russian Federation. It's akin to our CIA, right? So it's, if you were to think about our central intelligence agency, Russian SVR is the Russian version of that. Now, they were able to compromise the software build pipeline for SolarWinds. This is being labeled accurately as a supply chain compromise. In essence, it's not the traditional supply chain compromise that you think of, where they've compromised hardware supply chain and tampered with hardware, but they were able to tamper with a software supply chain that reached down to the end credit union that may use this particular product. And so they were able to compromise that build process. When they would build a new update, they were able to insert new files that were then compiled into malware that would then be posted on at a cloud distribution point for customers to go in and download their updates and then install those updates. There's two specific things I think really that I see that are issues here. Is first, IT security and administration systems are oftentimes the most overlooked systems within an environment. They, as IT practitioners or even security practitioners, these security systems oftentimes live outside the rules, right? They don't have the same. They may or may not have antivirus, right? They may or may not be using a low privileged domain account to log into the systems. They might use a privileged local account to log into the system. And so oftentimes they're very overlooked. They live outside the rule set, and it's because it's the path of least resistance. These are our IT systems. We just need them to work. And so as a result of that, sometimes people take shortcuts when implementing those specific systems. The second issue is, vendor updates. They're known good. Like an end customer credit union has no control over what happens at a big company like SolarWinds. Like, you have no control over their password policy, or they have, their password set for the distribution point as SolarWinds 123. You have no control over that. And so, as a result, you just assume that these updates are known good. Like, oh, a new version is out, I need to install this new version, and that's the end of that, right? And you just assume that it's good. And it's really the combination of these two things that can really make a bad situation much, much, much worse. But it is important to realize that in this breach, it was highly targeted. Of the 18,000, of the population of 18,000 potential victims, less than 1% were chosen for, some kind of follow-on compromise or exploitation. And the reason for that is you need to look at the actor. This was a foreign intelligence service. A foreign intelligence service, the Russian foreign intelligence service, has little need for a credit union. It has little need for a bank or financial institution. Monetary gain, stealing money is not their primary objective. Collecting intelligence is their primary objective. Also, someone like the CIA would be, someone like SVR would be responsible for, defensive posturing potentially, which is probably why you saw a lot of targeting of, power grids and utility plants and things like that with this compromise, because those potentially in a wartime scenario could be used against the United States to cause damage here, and then a heavy focus also on federal departments, governments, right? Because that's where they want to collect intelligence from. So and steal, and steal data and information from. So this was highly targeted. You could put it as a failed intelligence operation, but
I think we lost your audio for a second, Rob. We lost your audio.
Now?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. This operation was a failed intelligence operation, but it was highly targeted. A very, very small, very small subset, right, of customers were chosen for follow-on exploitations, and that has to do with who is responsible.
So maybe that we dodged a little bit of a bullet here, but I think there's some lessons learned in that they went after soft targets, and also, customers think that their vendor updates, regardless of the payload, are safe. But so some, we probably dodged a bullet, but there's some lesson learned. What other potential contributing factors should we be aware of that we can potentially learn from this? What else is could have been employed here that caused this breach?
So this breach is definitely, I do put it in the category of a failed intelligence operation. The Russians did show, while it was an incredible opportunity, it was an incredible intelligence collection opportunity. When you look at it from the perspective of the Russians, they compromised this one organization, and this one organization that has 18,000 customers gives them access to 18,000 other customers. But they got caught, and now when you look at it, they did use a little bit of bad judgment when designing this operation. Although they were selective about their targets, like this doesn't come victim free just because it's an intelligence service organization. Like, people who were compromised by this they've had to spend lots of money remediating the breach, and it's the private sector, and it's not just the US. There were global firms that were affected by this, are shouldering that burden. So because organizations can't, you have no control over what is going on at SolarWinds. Like, there's very little you can do to control that other than vendor due diligence, right? Which vendor due diligence is only going to take you so far. And it is one of the reasons, supply chain compromises like this are definitely one of the reasons why organizations like the FFIDC and NCOA and the insurance organizations for credit unions and financial institutions, one of the reasons why they are focusing in on vendor due diligence is to try and not do less business with risky vendors. But really, I think the biggest contributing factor that organizations have within their control is that these security systems, which are often overlooked, they don't have antivirus, or they may or may not have antivirus like a teller's desktop does. They may or may not be logging in with domain accounts, unprivileged domain accounts, like a teller's desktop would. And when you do these items and you allow a system to kind of live outside of the normal boundaries that other systems within your environment live under, that system becomes a lot higher risk, especially when you look at a system like SolarWinds, which would have considerable access to the rest of the environment, right? This is not a breach that infected every computer on the network, right? This is a breach that actually infected the physical SolarWinds system, right? And then from the SolarWinds system, they could then move laterally into other systems within the environment. And so, being an overlooked system, increasing vendor due diligence, sure, but a big, huge vendor like, SolarWinds, they're going to pass any vendor due diligence that you put towards them. So that's not the issue here. The issue is, making sure that you're doing the right things, and even with your security and IT systems, or security and IT centric systems are adhering to the same policies that the teller's desktop system has to live by.
So from a lessons learned perspective, then, what are the consequences? What are the takeaways that you would identify for our credit union customers on the call today that you've identified from this breach here that they should know about?
Yeah, so adhering to making sure those IT and security systems are adhering to the same protective infrastructure that every other system has to adhere to. And the second is using, making sure that you have the right tools to set yourself up for success, right? There are two main focus points, and we'll get into these a little more later, but the two main focus points are, analytics on post-exploitation activities. This is where you're going to, find introspection into this kind of breach. And the second is having adequate data lake technology so that you can have the appropriate search horizon when you need it. I need to know if I've ever communicated with these IPs like 12 months ago, right? Because it was 8-9 months before this breach was found, which you can't really fault anyone for. Like, these things are gonna happen, and they're gonna pop up more and more as cyber becomes a more and more aggressive domain to operate in. So these things are gonna happen, and you're just gonna have to need that adequate search horizon to be able to store all the required logs for 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, to make sure that you can go back in hindsight and find the data that you need to find.
So let's drill down on that just a little bit and maybe summarize for our credit union customers. You mentioned log retention. You mentioned post exploitation activities. Summarize? What are the key tools? What should they be doing? What are those actions?
Analytics on post exploitation activities is, well, it's really, you have malware detection and you have analysis on post-exploitation activities are the two first points of entry that you can control. Vendor due diligence, I think no matter what you do, you're going to get defeated there, and you certainly have no power over what is going on at a different company, specifically inside. So, analysis on post-exploitation activities, the data that someone wants to steal, that a bad guy wants to steal, does not sit on the SolarWinds system, right? They must move from there to another system in the environment that contains, account information, that contains PII information, that contains some kind of access to monetary funds to initiate wires and transfers, the core banking platform. Those post-exploitation activities must take place in order for them to achieve what they want to achieve. The SolarWinds system is not where that data lies and rests. So, having good analytics and having a good log retention on locations on your network that those post-exploitation activities can take place. What kind of activities are they? Credential extraction, lateral movement, copying of files, mapping shares, then follow-on exploitation of your cloud infrastructure, stealing usernames and passwords, doing account takeover type attacks, credential stuffing attacks, creating new accounts or follow-on persistence mechanisms inside the environment. All of these things are, post-exploitation activities that really you need to, that you need to focus in on from an analytics perspective. And then, of course, the follow-on to that is, if they defeat all that, and it's very likely even the most advanced EDR system is going to fail when it came to the SolarWinds malware. It's just brand new. Like, you can't have 100% detection rate, but where the systems are getting better and better and better. But you need to have the ability to go and look back, 12 months in retrograde, so that when these breaches do happen and they say, hey, look at this laundry list of IP addresses, you don't go plug it in your firewall, which has like 2 days worth of log retention. They're like, well, I haven't seen this IP in at least 2 days, right? That's not really answering the question, right? Because by the time it hits the news, I promise you, the Russians are already on top of it, and they've been on top of it for a week or 2 weeks before you have even heard about it, right? But what they can't take away from you, or would be very hard for them to take away from you, is that long-range search horizon, that retrospective analysis where you can plug in that IP and say, I want to see what happened last February. Did this IP come into play last February? So having that long-range, data lake search retention, I think, is very important when you're talking about these specific kinds of breaches, because they're going to happen. There's no avoiding them. You just need to make sure that you are set up for success when it comes to having the appropriate tools in place.
Yeah, Rob, really important. So data analytics, critical. The ability to make sense of what's happened, the long-term log and data retention, the ability to do easy reporting so that you understand, because it's going to happen. So the question becomes, if you can't stop it, what do you do post-exploitation to make sure you learn from it and don't let it impact your business? So I think those are actually really good lead-ins, if you will, to Adlumin. And you spoke a little bit about it when we started our discussion about why you started Adlumin, but if you could just talk about, who is Adlumin? What is it that you do, and give us, our credit union customers, an idea of what the company is all about.
Yeah, Adlumin is a security and compliance automation platform built specifically for, financial institutions. We of course integrate serverless computing, serverless processing, so you don't have any events per second or data velocity limitations. And then we attach data lake technology so that we can deliver the appropriate search horizon for you to be able to go back in hindsight and look 12 months in retrograde and say, give me an IP, let me see if I've ever communicated with this IP 12 months ago, right? We've got some unique applications in this place, or in this space. Specifically, we've got integrated NCUA ASET, Intrex CU, so that we'll become the system of record. We've got a heavy compliance focus where we're taking over all of your account management, account monitoring, policies and procedures. And we even have patented anomaly detection for core banking platforms, right? So core banking platforms that ride on top of old mainframe systems, and like the IBM I series or the AS400, it's called P series, AIX, HPUX. They span the majority of core banking platforms that exist here in the United States and abroad. And so I think it is important to ensure that you've got that core banking platform integrated into your overarching security and compliance ecosystem.
So you mentioned some of it, but what are the other core services that Adlumin brings that would be important to our customers?
Yep. So behavior analytics and post-exploitation activities is our specialty. Monitoring authentication, whether it's from your VPN to your cloud your cloud applications to your endpoints. We're monitoring that two-dimensional communication that can exist there. Detecting those anomalies in independent log streams from using analytics is really how you funnel down billions of events into a handful of events that represent threats, malfunctions, and IT operations failures. So bringing in a tremendous amount of information, and then from that tremendous amount of information, finding what is relevant as far as how it adheres to or relates to a threat, a malfunction, or IT operations failure that may exist in the environment. Data lake technology then is kind of the second step of that. All right, we brought in these billions of events. We've analyzed these billions of events. These are the handful that we think are relevant. Now we need to take those billions of events and store them somewhere so that, if we miss something, or if some other security product you have missed something, then we can go back and take a look when another SolarWinds breach rolls around, right? And so these specific tenets are, I think, important core services to what Adlumin brings specifically to this breach, but what we bring to the security and compliance space within the financial sector.
So taking massive amounts of data and turning it, using the platform, the Adlumin platform, to turn it into actionable intelligence that is actually useful for our customers. I get it. But now let's kind of bring it full circle. We talked about the SolarWinds breach. We talked about Adlumin. What role could potentially Adlumin have played for customers if customers had Adlumin in a SolarWinds breach? Let's kind of tie those two conversations together now.
So those two locations, post-exploitation activities, we've got a variety of algorithms that are running on that. Graph algorithms running on authentication on the VPN. Graph algorithms running on your Azure cloud. Graph algorithms running, for detecting lateral movement detection, either by accessing shares or, authentication to computer systems within the on-premise environment. RDP, type 3 logons, type 2 logons, authentication. All of those things, analysis on post-exploitation activities, analysis on the data that's coming through from all of your device data, whether it's your anti-malware platform or your firewall, highlighting or bringing to the surface relevant information and reducing the signal to noise problem that you'll have across those various devices. And then, of course, you've got, that long-term data retention, the integration of the data lake technology. It makes it reportable and searchable inside of the actual platform itself. It allows you to go very long range, back a really long time, and find answers to the questions that you specifically need. Threat intelligence is a big component of that, and it also certainly ties into that data lake technology, being able to achieve the search horizons you require, both from a best practice perspective, but also from a compliance perspective, taking in threat intel, because there is a lag with threat intelligence. Like any threat intelligence subscriptions that you may have, there's a significant lag time from when a breach occurs, it's discovered, that IP is kind of refined, enriched, and then a decision is made to integrate it into some threat intelligence data stream, and then Adlumin consumes it, and then we check your logs, right? So you can imagine from when the IP took place, or when that specific indicator of compromise may have taken place, there is a lag time associated with when it actually hits a threat intelligence stream, and then your data can then be checked, right? And so if you don't have the appropriate log retention, then you're going to miss 100% of those indicators, especially with an actor as sophisticated as the Russian SVR that's constantly cycling their infrastructure, and then a week or 2 weeks before you would ever even find out about it in the news, they already know that their cover has been blown and they're changing all their infrastructure, right? And changing all their implants. And then you go and look, and if you only have a week's or 30 days worth of retention, then you're going to miss it. You're going to think you don't have a problem, when in fact the problem has just masked itself, and they've just changed their infrastructure and tactics and evaded, essentially exploiting the lag time between when threat intelligence may receive information and when the information is actually operationally relevant.
So a rich set of capabilities and services, that long-term log retention and data retention, the ability to go back and look to see what happened, the reporting, the data analytics, the behavioral analytics, all kind of ties it in together. Makes a ton of sense. So key takeaways, what did we learn? What should our customers on the call today, what did they do as a result of this?
You have to have data lake technology to get the search horizons that you need, and you need a focus and analytic focus on post-exploitation activities, right? These are, the two significant things you need from, a technology perspective at your organizations. If you want, let this one be a learning lesson, right? If you want, to be set up for success at the next stage, at the next level, you need those two things, and you need them quickly. And they not only help you from a breach perspective, they significantly help you just from an audit and compliance perspective. Like, an auditor coming in and say, give me all the, account change events that occurred like last February, right? And so having that kind of information and data at your fingertips, I think is significant, and is a significant help.
Great. Great, Rob. Thank you very much. We appreciate your diagnosing what actually happened, talking about what our customers should take away from this and some of the strategies and the tools that they should be employing in their organization, as well as how Adlumin can help. I'm going to have you stay on the line. We're going to do a Q&A in just a minute, but before I get into the Q&A, I just want to talk about kind of what's next and how can our customers on this call learn more about not only the industry and what happened, but Adlumin and the platform and the technology that's differentiated. So we invite you to go to our website and learn about Adlumin. Download our data sheets and take a look at some of the things that are specific to the credit union customer that we've built into the platform and read some of our case studies. We'd also invite you to take a private tour, a demonstration of the platform, so that you can see how Adlumin could be used in your organization, including, we would offer a 2-week free POV, no obligation, no cost, so that you can deploy Adlumin in your infrastructure and start to see, gain some of this insight that Rob had mentioned. So with that, Rob, we are going to go into Q&A. As a reminder for everybody, if you do have a question, please use the hand raise icon or put your question into the question or chat box. And Rob, I'm just going to look for a question. I'm going to paraphrase here this question. Earlier on, I mentioned purpose-built for credit union customers. Rob, again, can you just summarize what is specific to credit union customers that we've built into the platform for them?
So first, we've got a pretty significant core banking line that allows you to integrate your, on-prem or data center hosted core banking solutions into your overarching security and compliance ecosystem. So we do own the patents on that. It's a large variety of different core banking platforms, anything that's on the IBM iSeries AIX. So that's things like Scimitar, Correlation, a variety of different core banking solutions for credit unions. The second piece is we do have integrated NCUA ASET and Intrex EU, so those things are coming in. That is, Adlumin will become the system of record for that. And another thing, the final thing that we have is specifically a compliance focus and an audit focus on all of those account management, account change events. Typically, those aren't brought into a security analytics solution, right? We do integrate those in, and they are a significant part of a security analytics solution. We've got an external scanner built in. That external scanner is designed to hit your compliance external scanning requirement, and then darknet exposure module that is included that allows you to get out of front of account takeover types attacks, credential stuffing attacks, threat intelligence information is automatically brought in and automatically surfaced, so that in something like NCUA ASET, just by deployment, without lifting a finger, you deploy Adlumin, domain 2, cyber threat intelligence, you get an intermediate level of compliance just by doing nothing, where probably previously you were, not even on the map there. And so it does bring it a long way, and we've become very good at that.
Outstanding, excellent. Let me just check the question window. Rob, we mentioned data retention, log retention a lot. How long can we store information in Adlumin?
So we have something called Snapshot 365, which is our automated storage and encryption service. It can store data as long as you need. I think everybody's got a different requirement depending on, like a regulatory requirement, depending on a variety of factors. Geolocation, regulatory standard that you must apply to. For normal credit unions and banks, it's a year. If you happen to be in New York under DFS regulations, it'll be 3 years. If you happen to sell securities of some kind or be a broker dealer of some kind, it'll be under FINRA 7 years. So Snapshot 365, which is that data retention service, data lake service, we can flex to meet whatever your requirement is, right? Those are just the typical requirements that we see.
Okay. One more question. Reporting. How how easy or how difficult is it to get compliance reporting out of the platform?
Most of the compliance reports that you need are just automatically configured for you when your account is created. Things like a privileged account activity report will automatically tell you who all your privileged accounts are, and then we'll send you a report every Monday on what their activity was, right? Object manipulation report changes, board and IT steering committee report. So it's extremely easy. We have a huge subset of financial driven compliance reports, canned reports already built and ready for you to produce. Most of them will just be produced for you automatically. And then we do have a custom reporting module that allows you to write a query, export that query into a report, and then schedule that report as well. But across the credit union customers that we have, we've got all the canned reports that you already need, and you'll already be delivered them on the appropriate cadence for which you need them.
So most of what they'll need is it's already there. It's already been built. It's just built into the platform, one touch. Perfect.
That's
I do not see any more questions. I'll give it 1 second more, but no more questions. So I think that's it. So Rob, again, I want to thank you very much for your expertise and helping us understand, but more importantly, helping us create actionable strategies, things that we can do in our business, and the things that we should be aware of, our credit union customers should be aware of, that they can start to employ. And again, for our attendees today, please go to our website and learn more about Adlumin, and feel free to sign up for a private tour and a proof of value if it makes sense for your organization. And as a reminder, everybody who attended our session today will receive a $5 Starbucks gift card. You'll be receiving that automatically in your email box, so please check that as a small thank you for joining us for this session today. So just to wrap up, if you have any questions, again, my name is Jim Adams and my email address is here, as well as Rob's co-founder, Tim Evans, and some of you may have worked with Tim in the past. There's our email address. And as a special offer for anybody who's attended our session today, as a thank you for attending the session and being a part of Kuna, we'll give you a 10% discount on your first year with Adlumin. So just mention webinar 10 for your 10% discount. So that brings us to the end of our session today. Again, we want to thank you for your time and attention. Robert, we want to again thank you for your expertise. And we'll be seeing you all, I'm sure, at upcoming credit union sessions and events. With that, have a great day, and we'll speak to you later. Bye-bye now.